After the Missouri Compromise, there was still a rising tension across the nation. In 1850, our friend Henry Clay came up with another compromise called the Compromise of 1850. California wanted to enter as a free state. However, the size of California made half of it above the 36-30-degree latitude mark, and half of the state was below it. And it would violate the Missouri Compromise. So Henry Clay decides this is what we're going to do. California is going to enter as a free state. Texas-Mexico border is now officially set as Rio Grande. D.C., our capital, the slave trade is now illegal. However, slavery still exists. There's going to be stricter fugitive slave laws, more power to the slave catchers who are trying to get those runaway slaves. And he's going to allow for popular sovereignty in the territories of Utah and New Mexico. Popular sovereignty means that you decide for yourselves, the people's choice, if they wish to have slavery or not. This kind of boils down, or up, I should say, when we get to Kansas-Nebraska Act. Kansas-Nebraska is allowed to use the popular sovereignty to decide if their territories are going to allow slavery or not. So Kansas decides to hold a vote of its population. Its population is 1,500 people. However, over 6,000 people voted, and they voted for slavery territory. The Missourians from Missouri crossed the border into Kansas several days before the elections in order to vote in favor of slavery. These Missourians were called border ruffians because they crossed the border. Now, the anti-slavery people who lived in Kansas did not agree with the outcome of the election, knowing it was false. They created another election. They created a constitution banning slavery. And we have two rival governments going on at the same time. So you have one government for slavery and one against. And this is in 1856. At the end of this year, we get a new general who comes in. And he's a territory governor that's brought in to keep the peace. Because the two rival governments that were there were physically fighting each other. And it's called Bleeding Kansas. People were killed. The new territorial governor brought in 1,300 military troops to stop the fighting and to bring about peace. Kansas is known as the first bloodshed of the Civil War. Now, fighting doesn't just happen on land out in the Midwest or Central America. It also happens in Congress. And I do not mean just verbally. Tension gets very, very high on the Senate floor. Anti-slavery man Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, he gave a speech in Congress where he insulted repeated congressmen and verbally attacked Andrew Butler of South Carolina, who was for slavery. So here you are at your job being insulted and verbally attacked. 2 days after he gives his speech, Butler's cousin Brooks comes into the chamber, walks up to Sumner with his cane, and beats Sumner over the head and shoulder, so many times knocking him unconscious. Sumner is so wounded he does not return to Congress for several years. Tension is building severely. Nothing they can do right now is going to quell this tension, and we're going to see it bloom into a civil war shortly.